they are playing in the divisional championship against the Patriots, who are really good. And I think the Patriots, sure. If I got that wrong, I'm just a girl. Sorry.
Welcome to The Good Stuff, a podcast brought to you by The Good Word Co. This is your host, Caitlin Piggott.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Good Stuff, a podcast for anyone going through anything. This is your host, Caitlin Piggott. And today we are going to be talking about the concept of two things being true at the same time. Sometimes two conflicting feelings, sometimes two opposite feelings, sometimes two feelings of equal value, but just like at different ends of the spectrum. And just like how even two people can have experienced the identical situation and walked away with very different perspectives and very different feelings, all that. So I just want to dive into that a little bit and share some experiences I've had with this idea, share some things I've seen in the world per usual that I think also are relevant to this. And I'm introducing a new segment today that I decided to do about an hour ago while I was on a run, because I love like what I do here on the podcast, which is like take a word or a concept or something, really dive into it, share experiences that obviously relate to my life or that relate to like the world going on. But I feel like the only time I'm talking, oftentimes I'm not like talking in real time. I'll recount stuff that has happened to me in the past or like situations that have happened in the past. A lot of the times I think when I'm talking about what's going on in the world, that has been what has inspired the episode. So that's a little bit current. But I want to update you guys on current fun, good things going on in my life or good stuff I've seen in the world. So we're introducing a new segment today and it's called Some Good Stuff. And that name might change because, again, I thought about that not very long ago, but there's just like these things that I keep seeing and thinking about that I want to talk about on here. And like I said last time, this is my podcast. I make the rules. So I'm doing that new rule today. We are introducing a new segment. And so this episode, I have two good things that I'm going to talk about in Some Good Stuff. And the first is really, it is a person. And I don't feel like I have to say much more than Fernando Mendoza. That young man is bringing me more joy through his interviews, through his performance in the college football championship earlier this week, through his, don't get me started on his LinkedIn. Like, he is being so entirely himself. And that is what we're drawn to. Like, yes, what he's doing is great. He won the college football championship, or he, led the team. He was the quarterback. He had that crazy touchdown where he like runs up the middle and like literally launches himself into the end zone. Yeah, I watch football. I know those kind of terms. I've heard him do some interviews. He said it was a run play, which obviously he's not like, well, first of all, he's a quarterback, so he throws the ball, but some quarterbacks run more than others. He says he's not a big running quarterback, but that's the play that they called 4th and 5 at the 15-yard line. So, I mean, that's a big deal because I think they were already winning, but like not by more than one score. So not by more than 7 points, and they wanted to be winning by more than 7 points, and he thought they would just kick it, and I still think they wouldn't have been up by, again, more than one score, but if they scored a touchdown, they would be. So his coach also, I should add 3 things, because that man, Kurt Signini, did I say that right? I don't know. Him, I don't want to mispronounce his name, but the Indiana head football coach, also 11 out of 10. Like, no notes. He's hilarious without even trying to be. But anyway, Fernando, like, there's just this crazy, I mean, he scores the touchdown. He literally looks like a pinball just getting knocked off these, like, huge men, I guess. I mean, they're college kids, but men. And he said, like, he was doubting himself, not doubting himself, but he was just like, this is a play that's, like, not what I'm used to, but I just went for it. And he was supposed to go to the left. And if you've seen it, which you probably have, he just goes straight up the middle and just, like, through these people, and he talked about it. Like I could go on and on. He is marvelous. And so that, right? Like that was an amazing thing. His parents, his mom, his dad, I can't even think about that. I cannot get started on like what a beautiful representation those two people are of just like loving their family and each other and supporting their kids and all of those good things. And he's such a like charismatic personality on camera, like really without trying to. He's just being himself. And that's why I'm trying to explain that in the sense of like, yes, like what he's done by being himself, the things we see are like entertaining. I mean, he has a crazy run to kind of solidify the win for his team. He is just like fun and loud and a little off the cuff in interviews and very like just humble and honest in any conversation he's having. And those are good things, but what you're really being drawn to is the fact that he's being himself. And that's a lesson to all of us. If we all were just took a little bit more of that. That's not saying that we have to do what he's doing in the same way. Like I could never run a football through all those people and score a touchdown in the college football championship. 1, I'm way too old. 2, I'm physically not able to do that. But we all have the version of that we can do. And again, like, and in the way that he's telling that story and how he, you watched him after the game and who he was going up to and who he was finding. And he was like that in those moments of like high highs and low lows. I say this often too, like you have no choice. People, that is when you see the truest forms of people, because you don't have the self-check to be like, okay, I'm going to like do this because it's going to look that way. No, you are just being so authentically yourself. And so again, that's what we're drawn to, the fact that he is just being him. And I think it's just a wonderful thing. And I will watch every interview, every second of every interview. Someone asked, I saw an interview today, I think it was him on the Today Show, where he's probably going to be the first round draft pick, and people are saying he's going to go to the Raiders because they get the first pick and they need a quarterback and yada, yada, yada. And they're traditionally garbage at football. So sorry. But they're not very good. They do not have a winning recent history, at least in a significant way that I'm aware of as someone who very passively watches football. I kind of, I get the somewhat vibe of what's going on. And I don't think that I know that they're not known for being like this wonderful organization. And someone asked him like, what if you go to the Raiders, and his honest, like quick response was just like, being able to play for any NFL team is a dream and a blessing. And like, we're not having, like, he just kind of shut down that narrative, which I could go on and on, but I no notes. Fernando, keep it up. And whoever is hired or, continues to be, I'm sure he kind of has someone, but like whoever is his PR person as he enters the NFL and continues his career, like, please, please, please. And Fernando, if you don't have someone, I will do it for free. I'm not even kidding. I would do it for free. Email contact@thegoodwordonline. And because like just free advice, do not change a thing. Like, do not media train him. He is not media trained, but not saying like he's not a risk to his own public perception or yours or any team's. That is a pure human, and we must protect him. And don't train him. Please do not train him. His honest answers are so humble and kind and honest and himself, and that is what people are drawn to. Do not media train him. He knows what he's talking about. He is very intelligent. He can talk football, obviously. He has a very, very firm grasp of that. He is a good person, and just let him be. Like, seriously, that's why I'll do it for free, Fernando, because you don't need a lot of help. I will just, you can call me before you have an interview. I will hype you up and tell you, you know who you are. You go do your thing. And yeah, that is my first of 2 good things and some good stuff this week. The second thing, and 1A would be the coach and just the whole story. I mean, I can't wait to watch that movie. I can't wait. I'm sad. Opening night tickets. I'm there. Okay, the second thing that I have for some good stuff this week is I have landed on foster care parent TikTok. And it is a magical place. I have cried multiple times. I cried on my most recent episode, like in the moment, recounting something that had happened in my own life. So that's like, you know, a different kind of cry. So you've all seen that now. Imagine me just like on my phone, just scrolling, and that's happening because there are just few more. Now I know there's bad foster parents. Okay, whatever. This is not the place for that. Okay, we're talking about the good foster care parents here. All right, just getting that out of the way. And them like sharing their stories and talking about it just. Do yourself a favor, and if you feel like your algorithm is not like giving you things that you want, just search foster care parents in your search bar one time. You'll start getting the videos I'm getting. It is so beautiful. It is, I think, a part of our world that is sad and uncomfortable to think about because it's like, oh, there's, kids who are in unsafe situations and have to enter this system that has very broken parts to it, sure, but there are also very beautiful parts to it, like these people that I'm seeing. And that's what I'm choosing to look at. And I think, foster care, which sometimes leads to adoption, all that, adoption itself, I don't want to use them so concurrently because I know they're very different experiences, but sometimes they do work together, are just such beautiful things and something I personally have always like felt a tug for. So these stories are like, just feels, I don't know, they hit a part of my like personal soul that is maybe different than some other people. In my professional work, I've worked alongside organizations like that or been working for places that helped kids who were in the foster care system. It only happens as a result of something bad, but it in itself is such a beautiful thing and really gives these kids an opportunity to be kids and get not the benefit, but the right to be protected for, cared for, loved, looked out for, fed, clothed, all those things that are there that are due to them. They obviously did nothing to end up in the situation that they're in. And so just seeing that get to happen and is really cool. So anyway, that's a new part of TikTok I'm on, and although crying often, I am enjoying it because that's the kind of stuff I want to see. That's good stuff. Okay, that's it for my first segment of some good stuff. We'll see if that sticks. I think that was kind of fun. And then I think it keeps me a little more fresh and you hearing from me in real time of stuff that's going on. Maybe sometimes it'll be stuff that's going on in my life. I guess these two examples are both obviously things I'm not involved in, just stuff I'm consuming. But nonetheless, there's your first stab at that. Okay. Coffee sip. Now let's get into the meat of the episode, the format y'all are more used to, where we go into the concept that I want to talk about today. So today, like I said, let's talk about two things being true. So I think this is most relevant to talk about when you're having two, like I said in the beginning, almost conflicting or opposite emotions. Like you're feeling happy and sad, or something is good and bad. Kind of like what I was just talking about the foster care system. Like two things can be true, right? That child can be in this person's care because something unsafe or very not good or both has happened to them. They are then in a place that is loving and able to care for them, and sometimes leads to beautiful things like adoption, like them having a family who is capable and willing and open to caring for them in the way that they deserve to be cared for as a child. Both of those things are true. Therefore, that child is feeling both of those emotions. The parent is feeling both of those emotions. Like you're looking at this broken. There's nothing more sad than a child, an innocent little person who is looking at you with hurt in their eyes because they didn't do that. They have been harmed by someone in whatever way, like they've been wronged by someone, and no child deserves that. So there's nothing more heartbreaking than looking at that. But I imagine as these parents, these foster parents are like receiving children like this, they're like, okay, they have this goodness to give to them. They have these things that, again, this child is deserving of having. And so I'm sure there's a hope, there's a relief of them. Okay, they're with me now. They're safe. They're going to be cared for. They're going to be protected. They're going to have their needs met. And you're holding all this sadness and probably anger and resentment towards what has happened to them. Very conflicting things. Two things are true at the same time. This happens a lot of times in life, right? Like another quintessential example would be, which I talked about a little bit last week, like 3 of my grandparents have passed away. And in particular, one of my grandmas I'm actually wearing her shirt right now. That was I meant to mention that in my good stuff. Okay, well, again, it's my podcast. I can do whatever I want. I have, in addition to my good stuff, it is that this is one of my grandma's old shirts, and I love it. I love grabbing like articles of clothing from her closet and wearing them. It makes her feel close to me. And I should also caveat, I spoke to her about this when she was still alive, and she thought it was great. And my grandpa continues to say that it's great. So anyway, not that I really needed to say that, but I don't want it to be like, I don't want it to seem weird that I'm wearing her clothes. She knows. And anyway, but like particularly with her, when she passed away, she had been very sick. She'd been very sick with dementia for a very long time. And so it was sad when she passed away, and there was a sense of peace for her that we all felt. We are a religious family, so we felt, and even if you're not, I think you can find peace in that. But for our particular situation, like we felt peace knowing that she was reunited with her parents, and that she had, I'm sure, like mental clarity again, and that she was able to relax in this new version of her life. And yeah, I mean, this is kind of a tangent, but like watching someone go through dementia, Alzheimer's, anything like that, there's a lot of like, yes, they obviously lose what we all know. They lose their memory. They aren't able to remember things. There's a lot of like fear in that for them. And that's really hard to watch. It gets really, really, really painful to watch. And, if they live longer than just losing their memory, their body forgets how to do things too. And I don't need to explain that further, but it just is a really painful thing to watch someone go through. And she dealt with it for a very, very long time. And in a severe way, she had it for a very long time. It was years before she passed away that she had, recognized me or spoken my name, or many of my other family members as well. So it was sad that she was no longer with us, that we could no longer hug her, that we could no longer see her. And we felt peace in that. And I keep saying and, where people might say but, and that's something I want to credit to someone named Annie Downs. I learned this from her a long time ago. She says like, yes and. She has this theory like yes and, because rather than saying but. And in my interpretation of that is, this may not be hers, but mine is that like saying but, even in just like our English language, it almost like negates one of the things that you're mentioning. And she's careful to not do that. And so I am too, when I'm talking about two things being true at the same time, because it's like, I don't want to say it's sad that my grandma passed away, but I feel peace, because that's negating me being sad. I am sad and relieved equally. Not relieved. I am sad and peaceful, feeling peaceful for her. That's that scale. If we're thinking of a scale, it's in balance. It's not one or the other. It's sitting even, but both buckets are full, right? And that's why there's a balance. Not because they're empty, but because they both have equal weight in them. And that's where I think I do think that use of and rather than but makes a big difference when we're talking about this for that reason. It's not, I'm sad because my grandma passed away, but I feel relief. Or, but I feel relief that she's no longer in a state of confusion and fear every day. And I don't have to watch her struggle through daily tasks or not be able to complete them at all, or get frustrated and not remember us and all these things. Like it's the same amount of emotion. They're just different emotions. And so that's where it's and, not but. So I think as I'm talking through this, remember that comparison of it being like an equal scale. They're not empty. They're both full and have the same value. They're just different. And similarly, there can be a situation where two or more people are involved in it and every person walks away with a different perspective. And I'm going to get into an example of that, or a different experience, because I think that's something important to think about too. I think we all can be constantly reminded about the fact that, you know, every interaction we have with another person, they have their takeaway from that too. And you said things to them and spoke things to them that they're going to interpret a certain way based off the life experience they have. It's not just, this is like a thing too. Like, it's not just your truth. I think that is a big thing right now. I'm living my truth. I'm doing, okay, that's great. Well, you being selfish and never leaving your house or not speaking to people in your life because they like sneezed the wrong way around you one time, that's a truth you're living. Well, that's having an effect on other people, and you got to remember that too. And so it's like, just because it's your truth, I think truth is a tricky word to use there. Like, just because it's your experience in life that you're chasing truth is not subjective, right? And so when you're talking about like an experience and someone's recount of it, or like what they're doing, or just the colloquial kind of use of it's, I'm living my truth. Okay, well, it can be true to you, but again, it can still be harming other people. And also, I don't know, your interpretation of something isn't always correct. What have I said before? Feelings aren't facts. Like, so you have to be a little bit careful there. But by that logic, two people can walk away from the same situation and have, maybe here I wouldn't say two things can be true, but two things can feel true to that person based off, again, what they have been through and their part of the conversation or the experience or whatever. I think this will make more sense as I start to get into some examples. So I'm going to do that now. But there was one quote that stood out to me when I was preparing for this episode that I think kind of encompasses it as well. And it is from our queen, Dolly Parton, when she says, if you want the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain. And so, yeah, like if you want the benefit of something, you have to understand, like, rainbows only come because it's rained, because there's been a storm, which people typically, that's like, people don't want that, but you want the rainbow. Well, you can't have one without the other. And I think that falls under this category and kind of concept of like two things being true at the same time. Like, one relies on the other often. Now we're going to get into the examples that I've seen in the world and in my own life that relate to this topic. And then I'm going to go through the first. We're going to talk about the example in the world, as we always do. And that is what's currently happening. So I'm recording this before the divisional playoffs, I think is what they're called. Whatever, before the football games this weekend. So if you watched last week, or if you've just seen in the news, Bo Nix, a quarterback for the Broncos, broke his ankle very sadly and very ironically, because I can't think of a better word for it, in like the second to last play of the game where he was taking a knee, which is like, if you don't know things about football, it's like, basically, if there's a certain amount of time left and you have the lead, you can take a knee and it takes like 30 seconds off the clock or whatever. And you run the clock down when you have a lead to, just like, you don't have to risk doing any sort of crazy play or anything. So that's how he broke his ankle, which is so sad. And in the very literal definition of the word ironic, so ironic. Anyway, he broke his ankle. He's out for the rest of the season. And they won the game, so they're in the divisional playoffs now. And so the backup quarterback, his name is Jarrett Stidham, is now going to play the rest of their season. So play on Sunday, and if they win, go to the Super Bowl. He has not thrown a single pass this whole season. Bo Nix has played every game, the entirety of every game, whatever. So, and I've watched some interviews of Jarrett, and he has, without, quoting me, not that it's to quote me, but with not saying like two things can be true. He is articulating that in the sense where he says, well, first of all, my thoughts and prayers are with Bo as he heals. And yeah, this is crazy. I'm getting to play in the divisional championship of the NFL. Whoa. Like, so at the same time, his scale, right? He is accomplishing a dream. What did Fernando say? Anyone who gets any invitation to play for any NFL team is already accomplishing something great. A lot of people, a lot of players, a vast majority of players who participate in the NFL never make it to even the divisional round, let alone potentially the Super Bowl. So Jarrett is now getting the opportunity to accomplish one of his most insane dreams, I'm sure, that he's had since he was a little boy. And he is really sad and empathetic towards his colleague, friend, mentor, whatever. I don't know who's older, who's not. I guess he can be younger, mentor, whatever. All those things, his friend Bo. Those things are, the weight of that is equal. That scale is in balance. Two things are happening at the same time for him, I'm sure. And, he said in an interview, like, I spend more time with him than his wife does right now, based off just the nature of their business and the time commitment that the NFL season takes for a player. He's like, so yeah, that's like, those are two really big emotions that he is feeling at the exact same time. And, you have to then execute on both of those things. I don't know what he's doing behind the scenes personally to support his friend Bo, who just broke his ankle and is dealing. Also, then you have Bo, who's like on the same way, hurt, like probably in pain and upset and defeated for the injury he had, and excited for his team and proud of himself for helping get his team to that same point, and proud of his friend Jarrett, who now gets to go live out one of both of their dreams, like to play in this game and potentially go to the Super Bowl. There are lots of things going on at the same time. Now, again, I don't know what they're all doing behind the scenes. That's really none of our business. But now, in this part for Jarrett, the big dream he's had to play in this game, the pressure that man must feel and the excitement and all these things, right? He hasn't had time on the field all season to look at me. I've played 0 minutes of football in my life, but I can relate it to other things. Like, I can imagine if I show horses. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, I show Arabian horses. I can imagine, I've done that for many years, but I could imagine the pressure that you would feel to have not competed all year and then just trot into a championship class at US Nationals, not having competed all year. There's something about kind of just getting the wiggles out. There's no room for that. They are playing in the divisional championship against the Patriots, who are really good. And I think the Patriots, sure, if I got that wrong, I'm just a girl, sorry. Yeah, because I think the Seahawks are playing the Rams and the Broncos are playing the Patriots. Okay, look at me, I watch football. So there's no room for him to get that out. I don't know how you simulate that in practice. I'm sure they are, or maybe he's just got the mental fortitude of a freaking lion. I don't know, but that's a lot. That's a lot to be holding at the same time. And in a week, also, he has 1 week to prepare for this because Bo broke his ankle Sunday night, and they're playing this Sunday night. Like, that is insane, and a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions, and all of them are valid. Maybe I should make this episode, 2 things can be valid. Not necessarily true. I really struggle with the true part of it. In this case, both things are true, but in the more performative way I was talking about of like people's perspectives. That's where I struggle, but whatever. I digress. So anyway, that's the example that I see in the world. And by the time you hear this, those games will have been played. But where I sit right now, they have not happened yet. And I am sad. And I'm struggling because, well, none of the teams that I have any personal affiliation with are still in the running. That ended last week when the Bears lost because my best friend has been a Bears fan his whole life. And my dad and my brother like the Eagles. My other brother likes the Buccaneers. I have a lot of college friends who like the Niners. I don't care. I stay on the bandwagon of whatever team is winning the longest, which now really none of them are. I do have another good college friend who's from Boston, and he's a big Pats fan. I know people from Seattle say like the Seahawks. I mean, I've got like enough skin in the game, but at this point, much like I dove on the Indiana bandwagon because of the story, that's kind of where I land now. And I really have a hard time. But more in the Broncos Patriots, I'm having a hard time because I really like both stories. They're both movies. The Seahawks and Rams, like, that's cool. All the football, people are like, those are the two best teams or whatever. Great. Love that for them. Like, I'll watch that game too. Curious to see how it shakes out. I don't have an emotional pull either way. This, I feel very torn because you've got Drake May and his adorable wife. They're like 23 years old. He is very good at what he does. She is adorable and bakes for the team and is now like got her own deal going on. Speaking of another part of TikTok you should find, go follow her and Michael May and then just look at her comments. That is the funniest corner of the internet. And so like you got that and everyone's saying he's gonna be a franchise quarterback, which I think just means that like that's where he'll play his whole career. The franchise will like just keep him and kind of build around him, much like Tom Brady from the same team. You've got Josh Allen. Oh, I should have mentioned. Whoa, Maddie and David, I'm so sorry. The Bills also lost last week. Yeah. To the Broncos, which is tough because Maddie's my best friend. David is her boyfriend. He's from Buffalo. They're big Buffalo fans. I also love the story of and gosh, those poor people of Buffalo, they just, they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row in like, I don't know, a while ago, and they've never won one. And like, this was Josh Allen's time because like, the Chiefs weren't chiefing it this year, and there was kind of like this path to success, and they lost. And that's a bummer. And so I should say I was holding on to them too. So last week, both of my last teams that I had a real investment in lost. Or all 3, because the Niners lost last week too, I think. Anyway, sorry. But so when I was going back to franchise quarterback, Josh Allen is an example of that. Patrick Mahomes is an example of that. I'm sure there's others. Feel free to be all you male football fans who are watching this right now, or girl football fans, but making a stereotype here. All you 30-year-old dudes, all my friends, all my wonderful male friends I've made over the years who are watching this, feel free to comment the franchise quarterbacks I'm forgetting about. But I think those are some good examples. Anyway, so you have that. And then you have the Broncos. You've got Jarrett, and people were comparing him to some Eagles quarterback, I think, who I should know, who this happened to. He like played in the the number 1 quarterback got hurt, and then he played, and then he became the guy. So like maybe that's gonna happen, but then I'd feel bad for Bo because like poor guy just breaks his own ankle kneeling and one day and he loses his job. But I don't want that to happen. But like you have this amazing potential of the story of this guy, this Jarrett guy, winning or getting to the Super Bowl. If he wins this game, he gets to go to the Super Bowl, and all the odds are stacked against him because he hasn't thrown I mean, again, they're both movies, and I'm having a hard time, and this is not about me. But anyway, all those things are true and valid, and I think what we're going to see play out, what we're seeing play out with this Broncos situation is a really good example of that. Now, in my life, where two things can be true, mine's a little bit funnier, but I had this moment while I was working a couple of weeks ago. And if you're unfamiliar, if this is your first time watching, I own a company called The Good Word Co., where I bulk of my business is consulting for nonprofits with their communications, fundraising, grant writing efforts. I help them with all those sorts of things. I also do a lot of editorial writing, predominantly for horse magazines that are distributed throughout our industry and some others as well. But particular, this was a whatever. I'm speaking about my workload a couple of weeks ago, and I had this moment where I was like, my job can be so funny, and I'm not poking fun at anything I'm doing when I'm saying that. All the stories I'm telling, all the work I'm doing is very serious, and I take it very seriously. And if you've worked with me professionally, you know that I take myself very seriously. I hold myself to a very high standard. I am very professional. And I just had this moment where I was chuckling to myself because I was working on a grant for an organization that it's a horse therapy program for children and adults with disabilities, physical and cognitive disabilities. Very serious stuff. They need money. I am writing to get them money. So I am living and breathing that for like 2 whole days. That's all that I did. I was just deep in this grant, trying to make a case to this grantor that these people need their money to accomplish these wonderful things that they are doing. And then, and amidst that, I think I had an interview or two for this story. And then I needed to start working on the story that I was writing for one of these horse magazines. And it is a really cool thing. It's, if you're a horse person, you will know what I'm talking about right now, but it's a story about Sundance Kid and the Acevedo family who has bought, stick with me if you're not a horse person, that horse has passed away, but they bought the remaining straws of, aka the rest of his, go-go juice, to be able to continue producing his legacy by breeding other mares to him. In the Arabian horse world, there's not whatever. There's a lot of vets involved in breeding horses. Obviously, that's just the safest thing, and that's what we do. So that's not weird for us to be talking about, but just stick with me if you're not a horse person. So in simplifying it in my brain, I was just chuckling to myself because I was like, here I am getting funding for this very necessary cause and telling this really cool story. This really is a big deal. It's going to really drastically help our breed and keep this really iconic bloodline going. And I was, again, just chuckling to myself, and I was like, stop talking about this and horse semen. And there was just a moment of like, sorry, sometimes you're so stressed, you just have to like laugh to yourself. And I had 15,000 things going on that week. And it made me just come back down to earth a little bit and chuckle to myself and to feel like, just check in with myself in that kind of way of like, my life and my job is just, I would not change it for the world. I would not have it any other way. Like I say, like, if loving your job was currency, I'd be the richest person in the world. And I really feel that way. But it brought me just a giggle. And again, both of those things are true. Both of those things are important. I want to be very clear about that. I, again, take my work very seriously, all aspects of it. I want that organization to get funding very badly. I worked very hard for that to happen for them. And I want to tell the significance of the story that is going on to an extent where even someone who doesn't understand the nuances of our horse industry and breeding and all that goes into that, like, to feel the weight of that. I mean, the what this is going to do is really incredible, and they are opening it up to other people that, they're not just keeping the breedings for themselves. You're going to be able to purchase them and be part of that and just keep that bloodline going, which is a really cool thing. And thank goodness for technology and the generosity of this family to not just do that and acquire that, but like make it available to other people. So again, those are big deals for both things. Again, a scale of equal weight. And in a moment of a lot of stress, it helped for myself to just kind of think about it in that way. And it brought me a little bit of a chuckle. So Anyway, that and that's life, right? Like when you're in the depths of something stressful or hard or whatever, like you have to, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. So you have to do that at times, and it's okay to do that. And that does not mean that I took one less seriously than the other, or I don't appreciate one more than the other, or I appreciate one more than the other. Like I cannot reiterate this enough. If you have worked with me professionally, you know that I am a professional through and through. But that was a funny moment to myself at like 10 p.m. as I was sitting at my desk still for the third night in a row. And both those things were true and important. Now, the last like bit of this that I'm going to get into a little bit is just, like I said, like people walking away from one experience with different perspectives, and why that, to combat that, not that you can make things like not true or not real for someone. Like, you know, I think about like a breakup I've had when I was broken up with. Like I was really sad and I was caught off guard, and, you know, I'm sure my boyfriend, oh, hi Ral, I'm sure my boyfriend at the time was also sad, but in a different way. He had been coming at it from a different experience. Obviously, he was maybe whatever, relieved or something, and sad, and all that is true. We walked away from that experience with a different variation of feelings. And that's just going to happen all the time in life. And that's why, like I said, it's just very important to be aware of the fact that like your actions cause reactions for other people. And I was telling my mom this story of a conversation I had, and where I was feeling really sorry for myself. And she said to me, okay, I'm listening to you and I hear you and I hear why, you know, XYZ thing that has happened in your past has left you feeling this way. And I was telling her, I'm like, I know that that's like, the feeling I'm having is not a fact. The feeling I'm having is not a reaction to what this person did or said, but it's how I feel. And I'm having a hard time, like, having both those things be true. It's very hard to suppress a feeling because I don't know where, like, sometimes my logical brain can't be like, that's not what happened though. You know, that isn't what happened, but it caused me to feel a way and bring up an emotion that that person had no responsibility for. And I think that can happen a lot. Sorry, I'm just a little bit afraid that if you can't see, my dog has joined me on the couch and she is laying like right by my laptop, and I just told her to knock it over. So we're done with our notes for now. But it's complicated, right? To be like, I was sitting there like, I'm feeling this way. But again, that person, I'm feeling this way because a variation of what was said or an interpretation of what was done is striking a familiar feeling to me that's uncomfortable. But that's not what that person is not guilty of anything other than really nothing at least that pertains to that feeling. And she said to me, she said, you know, you have to understand too, like that person went into that same situation with past feelings and experiences that you don't know about, because like I had not expressed the past experiences that were causing the feelings I was having to that person. She says, similarly, they haven't done that to you. So you don't know what you said or did that potentially triggered something in them that generated a big emotion as well. Again, neither of you are like responsible for that, what you did or didn't do to one another. Or like you're not responsible for the old feeling they have that you ignited. And you need to recognize that just like you walk in and it made you feel a certain way, that person walked in with experiences that you potentially poked at too. And just like you want them to acknowledge that and leave grace for some of your behavior based off that, you have to do the same thing for them. And that was really important. And it put it in a really good perspective, because it was like, yeah, that's so right. Like sometimes things are complicated. Sometimes conversations are tricky. Sometimes experiences are multifaceted. Sometimes you're Bo Nix. Sometimes you're Jarrett Stidham. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And you have to be able to manage all of that. you just I think to be someone with positive relationship and healthy relationship of any kind, like romantic, friendship, business, personal, familial, whatever it might be, like you have to be able to manage all of that at once, which can be tricky. But I think even without realizing it, we all do this often. I think those of us, at least, who are like thoughtful, healthy, kind people do this all the time. You might not always recognize it because sometimes it just becomes like second nature, but it is really important to do. It's important to be reflective on. It's one of those things, at least for myself, where I'll look in the mirror and be like, "Ooh, you did not handle that right." And I do try to be self-aware enough to like handle those things in the moment as they're happening. And if I don't see it right away, I do circle. I'm a big circle backer. I don't know. I do that. I will bring something up that happened months ago and be like, I'm really sorry for that, by the way. And people be like, I had totally forgotten about that. I was way over it. But I do that. So whatever, if you're in my life, you just know that that's true. But yeah, I think I say all that just to say, like, we all, I think, sometimes don't give ourselves credit for being able to manage a lot of big things at once. And kudos to those of us who do and acknowledge that two things are true or more than two things are true at the same time and valid, and being able to manage all of that in not only like our own lives, but in what we're doing, like me with my work week, but also in our relationships. And it is something that I think we should give ourselves more grace and credit for, and more compliment each other more on it, because it can be tricky sometimes. And I think most of us are doing our best, and in doing our best, doing good jobs. So anyway, that's my episode. I hope that you took something from this, and you can all see her. So meet Ral. This is my pup. She's the best. My co-host. And yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you got something from this, and y'all are the best. I hope you enjoyed my new segment, Some Good Stuff. I enjoyed speaking on that, so I think we'll try that again next time. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Good Stuff, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Good Stuff. Your host is me, Caitlin Piggott. Follow The Good Word on Instagram at the.good.word.co. And follow The Good Stuff podcast at the.good.stuff.podcast. To reach out about this podcast, email contact@thegoodwordonline.com. Graphic design work was done by Sugar Pine Design. The photo on my cover art was taken by Bella Claire Photography. And the intro and outro audio was done by David Nolf.